Conor McGregor is apparently fighting Dan Hooker next. This is the last thing I would have guessed I was gonna break today. Conor McGregor was scheduled to fight Michael Chandler earlier this year, and yeah, Michael Chandler finally gave up. But I'm sure right now Michael Chandler is screaming right now, staring at his ceiling, as Conor McGregor himself just confirmed his next date, location, and his opponent, and it is not Michael Chandler. But Conor McGregor was filmed in the backstage of his BKFC event, and a reporter came in asking him details about his next fight, and Conor McGregor replied with this.
Conor, do we have a date for the comeback yet?
February 4th, Saudi Arabia.
Who's the opponent?
Now, there's 3 massive details to break down from this. Number 1, it's the date, the location, and the opponent. I think these are all big deals. Number 1, the date, right? February 1st. Now, that does make sense. It's a Saturday, and also Conor himself has said that it's going to be in early 2025. Of course, we have to take everything with a grain of salt, but we'll get to that later. The location, Saudi Arabia, also makes sense because Conor McGregor does seem to have a good relationship with Turkey Al Sheikh, and Saudi Arabia has been interested in Conor McGregor before, right? They wanted to apparently make a Terrence Crawford and Conor McGregor MMA/boxing crossover match, and obviously it's just no shock that they would want a big star like Conor McGregor. I mean, they have all big fights there, so I'm not surprised that they're going to be willing to pay for Conor McGregor or pay extra for that. And lastly, and the most questionable, is the opponent, right? Dan Hooker. I think Dan Hooker right off the bat is a less dangerous and also a better win for Conor McGregor to get. Dan has been calling out Conor McGregor since his win against Mateusz Gamrot, and it's interesting because he could have easily gotten a #1 contenders fight next, but he's going to fight Conor McGregor potentially, and I think that will leave Conor in a better place in the lightweight division if he does beat Dan Hooker. And let's be honest, stylistically, it's probably a better matchup. But first, I want to talk about how legit this is, right? Is this even possible? Here's what we do know. Dan Hooker was backstage at the BKFC event too, right? He courted Oscar Willis for his fight.
It's like, man, if he wants to fight, like, oh, the UFC have already put a good opponent in front of me, but obviously, if we can get that fight put together, we can get that fight put together. I feel like it's another big fight.
Now, Dan says he doesn't want to fight in February, but this is because his wife is going to be having a baby in February, but he says January or March is fine. So seeing that this date could be February 1st, I'd assume that's fine since it's close to January.
I can do January or March. The missus is dropping a baby in February, so that cannot, my brother, cannot, even McGregor. Even for McGregor.
Dan Hooker and Conor McGregor were also seen talking together after the BKFC event.
It's a rising fucking tide, baby. It's a rising tide.
And my question is this something that they just talked about backstage? Because Dan Hooker had said in the past that he wanted to talk to Conor, you know, at the BKFC event because they were both going to be there and potentially try to get a fight. So is this something that they just talked about backstage and Conor McGregor likes and says, yeah, Dan Hooker, February 1st, let's do it? Because I do think, in theory, right, I do think that the location and the date are legit. And I'm going to get into why I'm saying in theory in quotes. But Michael Chandler, I assume, would be ready for February 1st, right? He's fighting, I believe, like November 16th. That is a couple months depending on what happens against Oliveira. I mean, potentially it could be a close turnaround depending on how that fight goes, but there's definitely a good possibility that Chandler will be good by that date. So unless Dan is the backup, this is just very weird to me. So my question is, did the UFC actually talk to Conor about this, or is this just something that Conor has talked about? Like, is there actually talks between Dan Hooker's team and everything like that? Like, how involved is this? But to get back to it, guys, I say in quotes, in theory, because we never know with Conor McGregor. I have been a long time Conor McGregor defender saying, guys, he's gonna fight. I said it in 2023. I said it in 2024. I am not making the same mistake in 2025. No guarantees. I'm not surprised if this guy never fights this year. It's really sad to say because I've defended Conor time and time again and I've gotten clowned in the comment section, but I've come to accept, yeah, who fucking knows at this point? It might not happen in February. It might not happen in March. It might not even happen in 2025. But I don't think that Conor McGregor is just making all this up. I think there is some level of truth. I think this is the ideal plan. February 1st, Saudi Arabia against who? Maybe it is Michael Chandler. Maybe it is Dan Hooker. Maybe it's someone else. I think it's a fun fight, but I'm not sure if this is exactly a better fight than the Michael Chandler fight. I think at best it's probably just as much hype, but arguably even less, because I genuinely did think that Conor McGregor fight, there was a big chance Conor could lose, and there's still a chance he could lose Dan Hooker, but it's just not the same. I just think that literally I could see Michael Chandler knocking out Conor McGregor, like seriously, but I don't see that with Dan Hooker. Maybe he knocks him out in the later rounds or something like that, but I don't think this is going to be a thing where it ends in the first round. And I genuinely don't know who would win, I guess, because my biggest question is, how will Conor Conor McGregor deal with the length of Dan Hooker. He's a very tall, rangy guy, and Dan Hooker has only gotten better and better as the years have gone on. He's been putting in so much work. It's a fun fight, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a fun UFC fight. Like, I think it's going to be a good fight, and it's even more winnable for Conor McGregor when you consider the damage that Dan Hooker has taken throughout his career. It's definitely an interesting fight, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. You guys are the best fan base in MMA. Hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.